Before we get this episode started, did you know that this show is part of a larger podcast network called Access More? Access More is an entire library of faith-based content from some of today's most inspiring faith leaders and speakers. Imagine a place where you can dive deep into meaningful, real, and vulnerable topics, all centered around faith. That's what Access More offers. The best part, Access More is a listener-funded nonprofit platform. This means that you can be a part of making sure these genuine and sometimes vulnerable conversations reach the hearts of millions. If you're interested in joining that mission, you can donate today at accessmore.com/donate. And as an added bonus for giving today, you'll be eligible to win a major tech upgrade. The perfect prize to help you enjoy the entire library of shows at Access More. All thanks to friends of Access More who want to inspire others to give their best gift today. You're so needed to help continue important conversations about faith and life on Access More. So let's do this together at accessmore.com and click donate. And hey, even if you're not in a place to donate, we'd still love your prayers and for you to discover all that's available at accessmore.com.
It's exciting that the business boutique was made for you.
I know that I can make a difference in people's lives, and I want to do that.
Hearing a lot of what other people are going through is really healing in a sense and motivating as well.
I have the world in my hand, and I can do whatever I want to.
Learning from some of the top leaders who can make these dreams a reality is just so exciting.
It ignited a passion in me to know she can do that, we can do that too.
I'm so blessed to have heard the podcast that led me to this moment.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Business Boutique Podcast. I'm Christy, Wright, and today we're talking about knowing your worth. Later on in the show, I'll be interviewing sales expert, creator of Monetize Thyself, and my very good friend Nicole Walters about how to understand your value in business. I'll also give you some encouragement to reset your business for the fall, and I'll be answering some of your questions. But first, let's talk about knowing your worth. You know, I have a memory of college where I had one of my girlfriends that, she was so smart. She was beautiful. She was hardworking. She was a leader. She was super involved. And she was just the all-around package. However, despite all of her amazing qualities, she tended to date kind of joker guys. These guys didn't have it together. They didn't treat her right. And they weren't exactly what you would want to bring home to mom and dad. Over and over again, I would talk to her about these guys. And of course, she'd be disappointed. And she would say, well, I just wish they would do better. I wish they would treat me better. I wish they would try harder. I wish they would get it together. And of course, I wanted my friend to have more. I knew she deserved more. I knew that she was worth more. But here's the problem. Despite all of my encouragement and pep rally kind of talks, she didn't know that. She always made excuses for him and just hoped that she could kind of pull them up to her level. She also always just thought, well, that's just how guys are. But unfortunately, the fact that my friend didn't know her value affected those relationships because no amount of me talking to her could convince her otherwise. She believed that's what she deserved. And as a result, she settled. In every dating relationship, she would settle for less than what she really wanted and truly less than she deserved. Now, I'm happy to report that since then, my friend has met an amazing guy that has become an amazing husband. But you know what? That theme of settling is actually pretty common. Whether in relationships or in business, if you don't know your worth, you'll settle. But you know what? That same problem can actually happen in business. Whether it's in relationships or in business, if you don't know your worth, if you don't believe in your value, you'll settle. You'll undervalue yourself and undercharge. And honestly, you'll play small. You'll play small and dream small, but God has big things for you. You'll stay in this tiny pond in your backyard, but God offers you the ocean. You know, it's really easy when you undervalue yourself to get pushed around. You get walked on because you just think that's normal, kind of like my friend in college. You might sit around and wait for permission to be awesome, but honestly, everyone else is too busy to stop and give you that permission. You'll get put in the back seat, as my friend Amber said in the last episode. But women, you were made to be behind the wheel driving this thing. That's why I want to spend this episode talking about how to know your worth. Knowing your worth is important in business and in life for a lot of reasons. For one, it allows you to make your business your own. Now, if you don't think you have anything to offer, You're going to spend your life trying to copy other people because you don't believe in your own unique gifts and talents. So when you know your worth, you can actually create a business and a life that's true to you. You can have confidence in what you uniquely offer. Knowing your worth also allows you to market and sell in your business. Now, if you act pitiful about your business, guess what? Everyone's going to think you're pitiful. After all, who knows you better than you? But when you know your worth, you can market your business and sell your products and services to people that need you and that will actually thank you when you help them. I'll give you an example. Since the Business Boutique book launched this past April, I have had countless women reaching out to me, commenting on my blog, reaching out on social media, telling me how much they appreciate the fact that I wrote that book. Now, of course, I think of the Business Boutique book as a gift to me. It was an honor to get to write it. But we're selling the book in the marketplace. Women are buying it. They're paying their money. And they're still thanking me. Do you want to know why? Because that's God's message for them. And women thanking me is them thanking me for what God is doing in their life. Now, of course, I was a steward and wrote the book and was faithful to the calling God gave me, but it really wasn't about me or what I could do. It wasn't about the price of the book. It wasn't even about the book itself. It's what God did through that message. Women, when you really believe in your worth, when you believe in the value that you bring and you believe in what God's doing through you, of course you can market your business. Of course you can sell your products and services like I sold this book because you believe in it. You know the power that it has and how it can truly help people. It's not about you taking advantage of people or you getting money. It's about the value that you're giving to people. Now, as a result, they give you money, and as a result, they thank you because you made a difference in their life. So when you know your worth, it makes it a lot easier to market your business or sell your products and services. But knowing your worth also allows you to charge what you're worth. When you undercharge in your business, let me tell you something. No customer is ever going to go, "Oh no, you're worth more than that. I really want to pay more." That's never going to happen. Here's the truth. You teach people how to treat you. You teach people what you're worth, what your products and services are worth. But so many of us struggle. We sit around waiting for permission. We wait for someone to come tell us that we have permission to go be awesome. We've got to stop. We've got to stop being wallflowers waiting for someone to ask us to dance, to give us permission to get on the dance floor, to validate our idea, to tell us that we deserve more. Here's the thing, women, you have to believe it. No one can do that for you. People like me can try to encourage you, but if you don't own it, you'll never live it out and you'll never charge for it. So knowing what you're worth really starts with you. But when you know your worth, you can actually start to charge what you're worth. Knowing your worth also allows you, by the way, to pay yourself for your hard work and make an income in your business. That's called being a good steward with the gifts and the talents and the business that you've been entrusted with. I love the example in the Bible of the parable of the talents. And you know what happened to the 2 servants that doubled their master's money? The master responded, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful with a few things. I will give you many things." When you know your worth, you can pay yourself for your hard work. You can make an income for your family, and you're showing that you're faithful in a few things. And when you are, that's when God can give you many things. And lastly, when you know your worth, it prevents you from being taken advantage of, which unfortunately is a reality in business and life sometimes. If you don't believe in your worth and your value, life and everyone else will just push you around. Now, here's the thing. You are not called to be a doormat. You're called to serve, yes. To be walked on? No. The difference is in who is in control. So let's look at it this way. When Jesus served, he was in control the entire time about who he helped and how and when, and every move he made was his decision. He was pushed around by nobody. So you decide who you want to help and how you want to help. But living your life getting manipulated or guilted into things is neither Christian service nor smart. There's a big difference between doing things for others and being a doormat. And women, you are not called to be a doormat. When you know your worth, it prevents you from being taken advantage of, from being guilted into things or manipulated. There are a lot of reasons that it's important to know your worth. But how do you channel that? Like, how do you realistically assess your economic value in the marketplace? Now, I'm not talking about your worth as a human being, of course. I'm talking about knowing what to charge in relation to the value you bring your customers through your business. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how to take your value and actually charge what you're worth in your business. There's 3 things I want you to think about. This is going to help you understand how to place a value and put a price on it. Okay, first, I want you to place a very high value on the uniqueness with which God has created you. You know what? No one can do what you can do like you can do it. You'll attract and help people that no one else can. Do you see what a big deal that is? God can do things in you that you can't even dream of. So don't downplay this part. God made you and He does not make mistakes. He's over the moon for you, and what He can do with you and through you for others is amazing. So when you're thinking about the value you bring your customers, this is by far the most valuable, incalculable, intangible, and immeasurable part. Place a very high value on the uniqueness with which God has created you. Second, I want you to place a realistic value on the experience, education, and skill that you have. For example, my speaking fee today is about 10 times what it was when I started 8 years ago. To charge back then what I'm charging now would not only be ludicrous, it'd be unfair to any clients that were crazy enough to pay it back then. I was a baby and I did not know what I was doing. I've learned and grown and matured a ton as a speaker over the last 8 years, and now my speaking fee reflects that. But back then, when it was 1/10 of what it is now, it reflected where I was then too. So be realistic about this. Be realistic about how long you've been doing this and how good you are. Now, don't be falsely humble and beat yourself up and undercharge here, but be realistic for where your skills fall into the market. Third, and lastly, I want you to place an ambitious value on the solution you're promising. See, when you're ambitious in pricing for the solution that you promise, it lights a fire under you to actually deliver on it. But if you undercharge and if you suck, well, you don't feel that bad about it because the customer barely paid anything and, well, they got what they paid for, right? But when you're ambitious here, it forces you to deliver, to be awesome, to super serve and meet their expectations and fulfill your promise to them. When you place a high value on the uniqueness God created you with, a realistic value on the experience that you have, and an ambitious value on the solution that you offer, I'd be willing to bet that your pricing could double or even more from what you're charging right now. Women undercharge in their business for one reason and one reason only, because they don't believe they're worth more. Women, you are worth more. But don't take my word for it. I want you to believe it. I want you to own it. And I want you to live that yourself. And then I want you to charge for it. Okay, so let's recap really quickly. First, I want you to place a high value on the uniqueness God created you with. Second, I want you to place a realistic value on the experience that you have. And third, I want you to place an ambitious value on the solution that you offer. Now, if you need a little help with this, I'm really excited to tell you that my team has created an amazing tool for you. It's called the Profit Potential Tool. When you go to businessboutique.com and you enter your email address, all you have to do is answer a few questions about your business, and y'all, it shows you a snapshot of all of the most important numbers in your business. It shows you what you're going to make for the year in revenue and what your personal paycheck's going to be. If you want to charge what you're worth, this is a great tool to show you exactly how to do that. So go to businessboutique.com and use the Profit Potential Tool to help you put this into action. Now, I'm so excited about our interview today because my guest is a very good friend of mine. Nicole Walters is one of the speakers at our Business Boutique event in Nashville this fall, and she's also a sales expert and creator of Monetize Thyself. Nicole has taught me so much about selling and knowing your worth. Nicole, thanks so much for hanging out with me.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Now, Nicole, you have been a Business Boutique speaker for years, and you're our resident sales expert. So everyone's kind of familiar with the fact that you teach about selling. But what I love is that selling skills really have a lot of other benefits. And you and I were even just talking about this before we went on air of, it really comes down to knowing your worth. And we've been talking about that in this episode. And I really want to help our listeners not only know their worth, but know why they need to know it and all the
Absolutely.
benefits. So you have a ton of experience in sales. Talk to me just as we're getting started of what are some themes that you see when it comes to women in business and when it comes to selling or pricing or, as you mentioned, knowing your worth? What are some themes that you're seeing?
So I think that what often happens is there's a lot of fear behind asking for money. It's just an awkward situation,
awkward, sure.
and we say to ourselves, well, if I really love it and I'm doing it for the right reasons, I'm not going to get paid. And if you're not paid, you're closed, right?
Right.
So it's so important to ask for your worth. And then, of course, especially with digital marketing and kind of branching into the big wide world that online offers us, a lot of women are spending their time worrying about hashtags and worrying about how to get more followers. And all of that is important, but the old school sales stuff still matters. Your visibility, knocking on doors, collaborations, asking for the right opportunities. And those sorts of things mean you have to know your worth because you're going to be putting yourself out there.
I see the exact same thing. Like it's a real struggle for us sometimes to not only talk about our products or price them, but at the root of it is we don't know our worth. Why do you think that is? I know you mentioned because we love it, we feel like, we shouldn't get paid for it. But like you said, we're closed if that happens. Mm-hmm. What is the root of this issue? Why do we have such a hard time believing in ourselves, believing in our product, and actually knowing our worth?
Frankly, charging a price makes it real. I think that a lot of us may be scared about some of the obligations that go along with being a business owner. So if I am taking your money, well, I'm obligated to be great. And maybe I'm a little bit afraid that I may not be great enough. But I always tell my kids this, whenever they're going in for a job interview, they already like you. They already know you have the skill to do the job because they got your resume. So it isn't about proving if you're capable anymore. Mm-hmm. The reason why they're talking to you, the reason why that second step has happened is because they just want to know if they're going to like working with you every day. Right. They're going to want to know whether they want to sit next to you. So if someone's already on your website, if they've already made it to you, the sale and closing the sale and taking the money, that's just transactional to deliver the product that they're already interested in. So often people are like, oh my gosh, I don't want to deliver. I'm worried about obligations. Will they remain interested? If they've shown up, they're already interested. Ask for the money.
Yeah, that's really good. Well, do you ever struggle, Nicole, with the imposter syndrome? Like that's something I struggle with. This idea of like, who are you to do this? Mm-hmm. And if that's the voice in your head, then of course you don't know your worth because you don't even believe you should be doing the thing.
Absolutely. Well, who doesn't, I think? Imposter syndrome, it's not spoken about very often, but I mean, it's a real thing. It was diagnosed in the 70s. And scientists have said, especially if you are a minority, so if you're a woman who's out there doing big things and an overachiever and you want to be successful, it's not uncommon to have imposter syndrome, which is essentially underestimating your achievements, saying that I haven't really done much, I'm a fraud, they're going to figure me out any minute. Right. And you better believe I struggled with it. And partly because I'm God's child, right? He's given me big dreams and he's given me big things and he's delivered the tools to get them done. And every time something shows up, I'm kind of like, how? Right. How am I going to step up to this? Is this going to be good enough? And what's important is recognizing that if the opportunity arrived, then it's yours to take. So if someone's showing up saying, hey, I want to invest in your business by buying a product, you need to receive that. You have to receive it.
It's so good. And it's amazing because we think so often the problem is our pricing or our Instagram followers. It's these surface level things, but you and I know it's really the root of the issue where if we have the imposter syndrome going on or we have this voice in our head saying, who are you to do this? You're not good enough. You're not qualified enough, and so on. If we don't know our worth, then we can't communicate our worth. If we don't believe in our product, then no one else is going to believe in our product. And if we're not believing in our price, then of course, no one's going to be willing to pay that price. So it's amazing how if we can get to the root of the issue, then we can fix it there. And then the Instagram followers and the pricing and all that stuff will fix itself. It's really easy to look at the internet and social media and say, well, okay, well, this person's doing it this way. They use 47 hashtags. So I guess I need to use 47 hashtags. Right. And so we don't know how to filter through what is the real path to successful sales? What's the real path to building great relationships that lead to sales? And we're having trouble really sorting through these methods. So I'd love to spend a little time. Here are the basics. Like, let's boil it down to the basics. If you do nothing else, you've got to be great at these certain selling skills. So for you, what are the most important basics or cornerstones when it comes to selling and knowing your worth and being able to talk about it confidently?
So the number one thing, if there's nothing else anyone takes from anything I ever teach them, it's the one thing to write down. people can't pay you if they don't know where to find you.
That's good.
So you have to give them a place to deposit that money. Okay. So one of the things that we often forget is before the internet even existed, before the online world, people were still very much doing sales and high volume, whether it was insurance or vacuum cleaners. The founder of McDonald's used to sell milkshake blenders, So it's so important to understand that there were methods that were there, tried and true, and that made people very wealthy, very successful, and very impactful before hashtags and things of that sort. So they're important. It's important to have those shortcuts and those gimmies and to learn about those things. But nailing the other skills are what's going to push you over the edge and distinguish you from the competition.
Okay, so you need to have a place to actually receive the money, which is pretty basic, but like you said, really important.
So important.
It's like when you've been in a store, right? And you want to buy a shirt and you're holding a $20 bill and you're walking around looking for someone to take your money. You're like, I want to give you money.
Right.
Why don't you want to take my money?
I know.
Isn't that what you're in business to do? So that's a pretty basic, simple technique. Okay, so what are some other basics that if you were teaching someone that is super uncomfortable with sales and they're like, I don't know how to pitch. I don't know how to even ask for the order. What are some more basics you would give them?
Sure. So I think the first thing is just the mindset shift, right? Because before you go in front of anyone, just like you said, Christy, you have to believe in yourself so they believe in you. So I always tell people that it's about pitching and not proving.
Oh, that's good.
So we spend so much time saying, oh my gosh, I have to go in there and prove myself. I have to list my accomplishments. I have to say what I'm capable of. I have to prove that this thing works. When in reality, take the mindset that when you're pitching, you are just informing them that you exist, right? You're already awesome. They just don't know about you yet. Kind of like a commercial or something that you see on like QVC or Home Shopping Network. These things pop up and you're like, hey, I needed that thing, that as seen on TV thing. Like, why didn't I have a window squeegee, or whatever, And it's like, wow, this thing's been there all this time and I never knew, but it's exactly what I wanted. Well, you know what? That's how people feel about the solution, the tool, the product that you're offering. When they meet you, they're going to say, my goodness, I'm so glad you exist. I didn't even know this was an option. Take my money.
Right. And it's so interesting because I feel like we have this idea of sales that you have to convince someone they want what you have. But you know this from Business Boutique. I teach women again and again. Your target customer is someone that already wants what you have to offer and they're willing to pay the price you charge. Well, if those things are true, then the sale is effortless. You've just got to, as you said, pitch. Okay.
Right.
So you're going to pitch. Now, that still sounds scary.
How do you pitch?
Scary. What do you do? How do you pitch?
So I'm excited because we're going to be talking about this at Business Boutique, and I'm going to break down everything you need to know for a pitch, like in a real tactical way with templates and sentences and all that good stuff. But just a little preview, pitching, the key to not being scared is doing all the research in advance. So everyone worries about what happens when I get in that room. Oh my gosh, you can basically run the show when you get in the room if you're doing your research. Know who you're going to talk to. Be clear cut about your product. Like, you know your product inside and out. You know how you make your quilts and you know how you make your jam. Make sure you're informed. What type of sugar do you use? Why do you use that sugar? How long does it take to process? If you know your numbers, when you go in there, it's a conversation essentially. And then make sure you know more about the company. So what's their mission statement? Do you align with their mission statement? What sort of products have they worked with before? Are you similar? Do you meet their demographic? Because if so, then you know what? You're already in there. They just don't know about you yet. And then the last thing I like to do, which is kind of like an extra trick, is I like to find out a little bit about the person personally. And thank goodness we have social media. So if I know I'm having a meeting with a certain higher up who may work for a big company, I might look up their name and just Google it and find out more like how many kids do they have or are they in any sports? Because one, it humanizes them.
Sure.
Makes it just less scary because I'm like, oh, they're just like me. They are into cross-country biking, which is absolutely not what I'm interested in whatsoever. What am I talking about? But, realistically, they're just like me. They love wigs. That's more like me, Or I'll find out about them and I'll say, oh my gosh, they have 3 kids. And so you go in and even if that doesn't come up, but oftentimes it does in a conversation, you still feel more empowered. They become a little less big and fancy and a little bit more approachable.
That's really good. Now, Nicole, you and I are just, what do they say? Cut of the same cloth.
Right,
like we are one and the same. We are loud, excitable, extroverted. So there are certain things, especially when it comes to selling or talking about your products, where it comes effortless for us because not only have we learned the skill and developed it over time, but we're also naturally talkative.
Right.
Let's talk for a second to those listeners that aren't. Let's talk to the introverts. I say all the time to women at Business Boutique, selling is not a personality style. It's a skill.
Absolutely.
And you can learn the skills of selling or knowing your worth or or talking about your business with confidence, regardless of your personality style. And you can do it in a way that's true to you. I don't want to turn a bunch of women that are not like me into me. They need to be themselves. And there's a way to sell in a way that's very authentic in your personality with your strengths. So let's talk to the introverts and say, what does it look like to talk about your business, to know your worth, to negotiate, to pitch, to all these scary things? If you're quiet and if you're more reserved and more cautious and more on that one-on-one relationship, what does selling look like for those women?
Sure. And I think that's a great question because introverts usually feel like they're out of the game, right? Like,
and it's not true.
And it's not true at all because here's the thing that we all share, introvert or extrovert. And it's just about, the only thing extroverts do is we tell it at a louder volume, but
very loud.
That's a very loud volume. But the only ticket that you need, the only thing that you need to work on today to make sure you can pitch yourself tomorrow is nailing down your story. And I know that at Business Boutique, Donald Miller will be there and he's with StoryBrand and he is awesome when it comes to knowing exactly what points you want to include, how to hook people, how to be authentic. But I've found that just knowing your story is the place to start. Too often we think with a pitch or with sales, we have to go in there and explain some stats or some numbers or some details or have graphs.
Or it has to be flashy.
Or it has to be flashy and fancy. And it's like, frankly, like, that bores me. You know what I mean?
Right.
Most people, they don't even care about that stuff. What they care about is what's your passion behind it? How are you going to be to work with? Will you deliver? You know, what's your integrity like? And all of that is revealed through your story. So if you can nail down how you came to your business, why you do your business, where you see your business going, and how you plan to develop it, that is the core foundation of any good pitch. And you can tell that in the form of a story. And you know what? Even introverts light up when they're talking about their passion.
That's such a great example because introvert or extrovert, we all have a story. And the story is really what you're telling. We talk about this at the event as well, where it's really about sharing your why. Simon Sinek says, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it.
Yes.
And all of you have a why. If you're an introvert, you have a why. If you're an extrovert, you have a why. And there's a method of telling your story in a way that's true to you. You may not shout it like Nicole and I do.
Right.
You may not be as excited or expressive as Nicole and I are, but you tell it in a way that's more authentic. And in fact, my husband is an introvert, which a lot of times you see
my husband is too.
Opposites attract. Bless them. Bless their heart for
goodness.
putting up with us. But the reality is introverts have unbelievable strengths as well to offer, especially in terms of sales. They tend to be more one-on-one, where extroverts have a lot of friendships that are more casual. Introverts have deep relationships with a few people. And when you have these deep relationships and you are excellent in conversation one-on-one, you are building trust. And as you know, Nicole, this is your area of expertise. Trust is what creates sales.
Oh, it's everything. It's in the relationship building. So that's another thing is so often we'll hear about like the whole elevator pitch thing where you get into an elevator and you got to be able to sell them by the time you get to the floor. And I think that that's the mindset that people take into pitching. That is scary. That's scary to me because I'm a talker. I'm like, how am I going to bombard someone with everything that I am in, 3 stories? That's overwhelming. And what I've found is any time that I interact with anyone who's new to knowing me or I want to kind of get a quick sense of who I am, all I do is I treat them like a person. I just go in there and I ask questions and I tell them about myself in a casual way, like, oh, hello, I love your shirt. Tell me more about who you are. My name is Nicole. That is the beginning of any good pitch. It's not going in there with pyrotechnics and like an amazing, fireworks, an amazing PowerPoint presentation saying like, oh, so here's a so-and-so company. Like, you don't have to do all of that. You can go in and say, hi, my name is Susan and I'm the founder of whatever company. I built it because I love it. And this is what it can do. And that is a pitch that will win, even if you're an introvert.
You brought up something really interesting where you said, treat them like a person and ask questions. And I think people have the misconception that sales is all about talking. You got to talk. But really, the best sales happen when you ask great questions and then you stop talking, which for you and I, Nicole, let's be honest, it's hard.
It's a challenge.
It's a
challenge.
Struggle. But when you stop talking and you actually listen, and it's amazing because human beings, this is everyone, are very self-centered. In our nature, we're very egocentric. We're always thinking about what's in it for us, which is why we have to talk to our customers about what's in it for them. But when you have a conversation with someone, let's say that you went to coffee with someone, and all you did through the whole coffee was ask them questions and let them talk.
Right.
They would leave that coffee and go, I love that Nicole.
Yeah.
She is awesome. And it's not because you said anything awesome.
Yep.
It's because you let them talk. Now, they
That's
wouldn't
right.
probably consciously be aware of that.
Sure.
But when you let people talk, when you let people share their frustrations or their stories or their goals or motivations, they love you because they felt heard and they
Yes.
felt seen. And if you have a conversation like that, often that's building trust, which leads to sales where you say, hey, you know what? I'd love to help you with that problem. I have XYZ product or service. And they're going to be that much more likely to buy because you didn't talk at them. You listened
Absolutely.
to them. So I think that's such a great lesson for all of us as we're talking about our business to just listen more. You know, a great pitch can be a 5-minute thing at the end of a 30-minute conversation where you
right.
do a lot of listening. All right, Nicole, what about the people, introvert or extrovert, where they just struggle with knowing their worth? They're like, I actually don't know that I have anything to offer. I actually don't believe in my business. I know that I should, and I want to do this. I have this dream, but I just have trouble believing in it. Where do I get that belief? How do I muster that up? What do I do if I don't believe?
So there's this weird shift in thinking that has to happen, right? I mean, sure, I can tell you do it afraid, which is true, right? You're going to be scared at every part of your journey because even if you crush one thing, when you get to the next level, it's going to be something new again. And that is something that I did not expect in entrepreneurship. Every day is new. Every day I have to tackle something I never expected. And every single day I have some form of a tiny, not a failure, but something that didn't play out the way I expected that I have to learn from. So I think that that's important to take into pitching and sales also, recognizing you will hear no's. Just be prepared for that. But a no right now isn't a no forever. Just use it and leverage it to get better. Stand on all of your no's until you reach your yes. So if you lack the belief in yourself, honestly, what you really want to do is recognize that the last part of building any business is launching, right? So often we think it's, oh my gosh, I have to perfect it before I can even go tell anyone about it. When in reality, you can't reach a fine quality product without getting feedback. And you can only get feedback if you actually launch it. So it's scary to have that belief, but recognize that you are doing the right thing. If you made it to the point where you're even saying, is it ready to go out there? You know? Right. Yeah, it is. And you can do it. Get yourself in a community, meet the right people, talk to your friends because they're the ones that are going to push you over the edge. And then once you finally get it done, when you get all that feedback, not only can you improve what you have, but you're going to have even more belief in yourself and your ability because you did it.
Right.
And because you can make it better.
And Nicole, you and I have both been speakers for years. And so after speaking for years, you have confidence when you walk on stage.
Oh,
you
yeah.
have the reps to say, you know what, I've done it before, I can do it again. You've got proof. But when you're just getting started, whether that's as a speaker or a writer or in business, you don't have any proof. So there's always this gap in experience where you're going, I'm not going to really be confident until I have experience, but I can't get experience until I do it. And so what I tell people all the time is just fake it. Fake it until you feel it. Now, the first few times I walked on stage, I was totally faking it because I didn't have any experience to give me proof that I could do it. I was faking confidence. But now, of course, when I walk on stage and I run out there and I say, oh, y'all, I'm so excited to be here, I really mean it. I really am excited because I have reps and proof and the confidence is authentic. But it's okay when you're starting out. If you don't have belief, it doesn't mean you'll never have belief.
Right.
It just means you don't have proof right now because it's brand new.
Right.
And that's okay. So you can fake it for a season while you're in that gap until you have actual proof. I've done this and we're going to do it again.
That is so good. And I think it's worth noting also that it doesn't come all at once. And we both know that from speaking. Like when you speak on one stage, it's not exactly what you may walk into the next time, you know? And if you've used a certain type of mic, well, the next time it may be a different mic. So as you go and as you start encountering different scenarios within your business, you'll find that you'll have confidence that eventually you'll say, you know what, I think I've seen pretty much everything. I can walk in there and make it work. So now, I mean, if you told me, hey, you're going to be speaking at the gas station down the street, right in between number 4 and number 3, you know, I'd be like, hey, all right, let's do it. You know what I mean? No mic, no anything, let's go. You know what I mean? Because I've done it all at this point. So I think that that is part of understanding that every single experience you go into is really adding to your arsenal of awesome, you know, and you'll be able to be stronger next time.
Well, and it's a great lesson too, because it seems like the more you do it, whatever that thing is for you, whatever your business is, the more that you do it, the less perfect it needs to be for you to win.
That's so true.
And the less stuff you need even to feel confident in it. So it's kind of like with kids, like Nicole, you know, I have 2 right on the age of 2.5 and 10 months. So life is crazy. You have 3, a wide range of ages. But with Carter, my oldest, it was like everything everything had to be perfect. Oh, the nursery is perfect. I had to have all the contraptions and the slings and the swings and the things that would launch them into outer space. All the things, right, that would make them sleep and make them perfect and happy little bundles. By the time I met Conley, which is my second, I'm just like throwing him on my hip and running in the car. He, does he even have a diaper? I don't know. Shoes? No, we're fine. We'll make it work.
Right.
You just realize you need less.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have to be perfect. That you figure out, to your point, you can be in a gas station between pumps 3 and 4 and you can give a speech.
That's right.
But it comes through learning. And
you
need less stuff in order to win. And it doesn't have to be so perfect as you think it has to be to win. Well, I think for a lot of women that are at different stages of the journey, this imposter syndrome creeps up, the fear creeps up, and that has such a ripple effect in their business. And so you start to see it in really tactical ways of there are many women that are listening right now that whether or not they realize it are severely undercharging. They are not making money. And the root of it is what we're talking about here. They don't believe in their worth. They don't know their worth. They're just having trouble getting the reps, getting the confidence, nailing the pitches, all this stuff we're talking about. But the end result is they're putting out a product or a service that is way less. It's very much undervalued. And as a result, they're not making money. And so talk to us a little bit about what you've seen and what you coach women to do when it comes to finding that sweet spot of a price range, testing, experimenting, and how do you turn your worth into dollars?
Yeah.
How do you actually pick those numbers? Let's talk about that for a minute.
I love that. So I am obviously very passionate about telling people you don't have to do free to bankruptcy, right? I get emotional about it almost because I think of all the people out there that have amazing purpose and tools and solutions that literally will do so much free that they just cannot operate anymore. So it's a shift in thinking. That's the first part of it. And the first part of it is shifting from saying, oh my gosh, I'm taking their money and because I'm so happy to be in my purpose and I love what I do so much, there's no way they could pay me for this because it's just so amazing. No, you have to think. God wants to widen your territory. You have more people to serve. You have an impact that's imperative to this world. It's so necessary. How are you going to reach these people? How are you going to pay for the ticket to debut your product in London if you aren't charging for it? So, I mean, that is something I'm very passionate about because I want to see people grow. I don't want to just see them launch. So because of that, you've got to charge what you're worth. It's important. So what does that look like, right? So many women are like, what's pricing? How do I figure it out? What's too much? What's too little? And I always try to tell women that the very first round that you do should be considered your beta. You're just starting out. It's brand new. You're allowed to have a reduced rate, but where you're going to make up that difference is on surveys. It's on feedback. It's on engagement. You are going to serve this first group of people, your first set of buyers, like no one else. And it's going to hurt a little bit, but you're doing it when your business is at its smallest. You're doing it when your business doesn't have as much overhead and expenditures. You may not have a whole team. So this is where you can actually afford to charge a little less. And you're doing that simply because you want to improve your product so you can demand the price that you deserve. So what's important is that you get out of that beta stage though. And so many women will say, well, this is what people have paid. This is all they'll pay for it. And that's not the case. If you've gotten one survey back and you've improved your product, you're now ready to charge more. So make sure that you're looking at everything that you're doing in your business. How much do your products cost? How much time and hours are you putting into it? What does it cost you to rent that booth at the farmer's market in order to sell your hair bows or to sell your jam? And then make sure you're including that cost as part of your hair bows. And I think that too often women forget all the little things that go into it, the packaging, the wrapping, the paper, the gas to go get the supplies, and we especially don't include our hours at the kitchen table to assemble. And you've got to put a price on all of that, divide it up, and that's the price of your item. Because if you don't, soon your numbers will be out of whack and you'll be out of business.
I think that's really hard to remember because when we're just trying to keep up with all of the orders, getting through the day-to-day grind, it's very easy to underestimate the cost, certainly underestimate our time, and as a result, we're not making money. But then what I've seen happen, Nicole, is we justify it. We say, well, but I love it so much. I mean, I don't have to make money.
I'm new.
It's as if we feel like that because we love it, we shouldn't make money.
Right.
Like, we can only make money if we really hate ourselves and hate our jobs and hate our lives, which is just crazy because don't you want to buy from someone that's loving what they're doing?
Absolutely.
It should be both and. And so wherever this guilt is coming from of, well, I love what I'm doing, so therefore I shouldn't be paid, is a myth. And that's something we need to bust because if you love it, that's a sign you're in your strengths and your God-given gifts. And that's the thing you should be paid for.
More of that.
You're
Pour
shining.
gas on it. You know?
You're shining in your gifts. Well, Nicole, I love that we're talking about this because it's giving our listeners a little bit of a preview of what you're going to be talking about on the main stage at Business Boutique in Nashville this fall. So tell us a little bit about what your plans are, what your topics are, and what they can expect if they come to the event and hear from you.
So I love this. My keynote is called Plan, Pitch, and Pray. And that is the ultimate formula to get what you want when you want it. So I am super excited to break it all down. And of course, a lot of us think pitching, well, that's a topic in and of itself. Well, you know what? It's the things that go around it that actually make your pitch successful. So I'm going to give people a strategy on how to plan step by step before they even walk into that room, so that when they finally get to pitching, they nail it and knock it out of the park. And then, of course, pray. All the things that happen afterwards. You've got a follow-up, you've got stress, you've got nerves, and that might even be the worst part. So we're going to touch on that a little bit too, to make sure that they know how to get through that time until their yes shows up.
Well, it's so good because, as you know, and you've been at Business Boutique before, this idea of selling, this idea of pitching, of knowing your worth, all of these things are a real hot topic for this audience. In fact, we did years of research to understand what are the themes that women really struggle with in business, and sales and marketing were two of the top issues. And that's the reason that we spend some time on the main stage talking about this, giving them the tools they need, practical steps that they can take, but also the inspiration they need to be able to talk about their product or service with confidence, not feel bad about it, not feel like, oh, I've got to be a pushy salesperson or I've got to be loud and extroverted like someone else.
Right.
No, there's a way for you to sell that is authentic and true to you, where you can win in your business and not feel bad about it. And so I'm so excited about what you're going to be sharing. Nicole, as we wrap up, I would love it if you would leave our listeners with a word of encouragement when it comes to knowing their worth and knowing their value in the marketplace and in their God-given gifts.
So if there's nothing else you're going to take away from it about your worth and your value, it's knowing that you're inherently good enough. God created you to be an amazing, divine, filled with purpose thing. So 100%, whether you're walking in that room and you get a yes or you get a no, you're already good enough when you arrived. And if you keep that in mind, then there isn't anything that should scare you too much about it, especially when you're planned and prepared.
Oh, that's so good. Nicole, how can our listeners connect with you and find you and learn more?
You can find me and learn more at NicoleWalters.tv, and I'm all over social media at Natural with a P, Nicole.
And she's really funny on Insta Story, y'all. So if you're not on Instagram, go on Instagram and follow Nicole because she is hilarious. She makes me laugh every single day. Nicole, thank you so much for hanging out with us.
It was so much fun. I love it every time.
Now, if you want to hear more from Nicole Walters, as well as an amazing lineup of speakers, come to the Business Boutique event in Nashville this November 2nd through the 4th. In addition to Nicole, you'll hear from Rachel Cruz, Rory Feek, Donald Miller, Pat Flynn, Patsy Claremont, Molly Pittman, and more. And of course, we have a special code for you, my podcast listeners. Use the code BBWright at businessboutique.com and you'll get $10 off any ticket to the Business Boutique event in Nashville this fall. That's BBWRIGHT. You guys are going to love this event, and I can't wait to see you there. You know, the Business Boutique event in Nashville this fall is one of the many things that we've got ramping up for the fall season. But this summer, I'll be honest, guys, I a little bit took my foot off the gas. I went to the Keys with my husband, which was a really big deal because it was our first vacation in 3 years since having kids. I went to Charleston with my girlfriends. I've been to the pool, I've been on bike rides and picnics and to playgrounds with the boys. And I'm not the only one. Summer's a great time to focus a little more on life in this whole life balance thing. Everyone kind of kicks back and recovers from the last crazy season and resets for the next crazy season ahead. But guess what, guys? It's August 22nd, and it's time to shake off the summer slump and kick it into high gear. Now, I'm doing this with you. This is a great time to reset and revisit your goals. It's kind of the second new year. Everyone gets in gear in January, and then we kind of slide off the wagon in the summer. But then when August rolls around, when it's back to school, everyone resets. It's time to get back into gear, get the house organized, get back on a schedule, and get back to your goals. So let's just look at where we are right now. First, we are 2 weeks away from Labor Day. We're just over 2 months until Halloween. We're exactly 3 months and 1 day from Thanksgiving. And if you want to take advantage of growing your business during one of the busiest buying seasons of the year, Christmas, then now's the time. Because even though it's 4 months away, as you know, it'll be here before you know it. And the work you do now, way in advance, will be the difference of how much money you make and how much fun you have making it during that crazy season coming up. So I want you to reset. I want you to regroup, and I want you to refocus. Here's a few things you can do this week to actually flip the switch and kick it into high gear. One thing you can do, and I try this often because it really helps me mentally and emotionally, Clean your space. What is your workspace that you can actually organize and get ready for this next season? Another thing that you can do is set end-of-year goals. Everyone sets goals in January, and everyone forgets them by February. But what about setting end-of-the-year goals? You can set some goals right now that you want to hit before the calendar flips to 2018. Another idea is to pick a way that you want to invest in yourself to actually reach your goals. Maybe you buy a new book. Maybe you join the Business Boutique Academy. Maybe you come to our Business Boutique event in Nashville this November or a different event. I don't really care how you do it. I just want you to actually kick it into gear to make sure you're reaching your goals. However you do the work, I hope you do it because your customers are worth it. Your business and your dream are worth it. You're worth it. Now is the time for you to get back into it and get back to making money doing what you love. Now, this past spring, you guys asked me questions by visiting our Business Boutique podcast booth at our Business Boutique one-day events. And now I'm going to answer a few of those questions. Our first question comes from Jan. Jan, what's your question for me?
My name is Jan Johnson, and I have calico quilting. I do long arm quilting for customers. I have trouble with people wanting things free or at a discount, and I have no answer for that because I really am a service-oriented person, and I just don't know how to deal with it. And it's a big problem for me because it's getting worse and worse. So I just need to know how to deal with it.
Jan, I hear you. And I want to tell you that your struggle is actually really common. Many women get into business because they want to help. They want to serve and make a difference. So of course, when it comes to charging, that can be a little tricky. I hear your concern, and I want to give you a really easy tip that will help you fix this problem. When you get asked for things for free or at cost, you feel put on the spot. That's usually when you give things away for free or at cost. When you end up saying yes when you mean no, and when you give away things that you end up resenting and regretting later. The best way to prevent this from happening, because it's going to keep happening if you don't have a plan, is to actually script your response ahead of time. See, anyone, when they feel put on the spot, doesn't know what to say, and sometimes we say the wrong thing. That's why I want you to decide in advance how to handle these situations. And then I want you to literally write out your response. So think of common scenarios that you've actually experienced in the past, and then write out your perfect best answer. An answer where you stay true to yourself and your values, but you also are kind and authentic. Maybe it looks like this. Someone asks you to make a quilt for them. Oh, just this one little time because we're friends and family and go way back, And you script out this response. You know what? I would love to make that quilt for you. I'm actually building a business by doing exactly that. If you'd like to order a quilt, I can show you exactly where you can pick out the perfect quilt for the party you're going to. See? That was really nice. But I still stuck to my guns. I'm not doing your quilt for free. And you know what? If they have the nerve to ask you, Jan, you have to have the nerve to say no. You have to have the nerve to stand your ground and redirect and insist that you get paid for the hard work you're doing. If quilting was a hobby, by all means, give away all the quilts you want to. But it's not, Jan. It's a business, and you deserve to be paid for your work. So script out your response ahead of time, and I promise you, it'll help you stand your ground and not feel so put on the spot. Great question, Jan. All right, our next question comes from Gina. Gina, what's your question for me?
My name is Gina Erickson, and I do not have a business yet. I just went through the digital mentoring, the 9 weeks, so big fan, super fan over here. My question was, I have 2 business ideas, so I'm really having a hard time deciding what to do. So my 2 ideas are, one of them is more like a life balance coach, really helping people be disciplined, because that is one thing that I hear from people, like, you're disciplined. The other one, though, that I love and I'm way more passionate about is I want to have a company that have a product, have something that you can buy, but then the proceeds go to give back to something, a greater good. So I'm trying to figure out what to do.
Great question, Gina, and I hear you. I'll tell you, my first inclination is to tell you to go the route you're more passionate about. When you're passionate about your idea, you're going to stick with it for the long haul. You're going to push past fears and challenges, and you're going to actually bring that idea to life. Now, of course, we don't know what that product is, so that's a detail that we need to work out. Figuring out what product you're going to sell is a big deal. The manufacturing, the creation, the cost of goods, the inventory, the shipping, all of that is essential to building your business. So I don't want you to miss this step. I know you're passionate about giving back, and I think that's awesome. But let's put a little bit more detail to this idea. Let's get a little bit more specific about it and bring more clarity around this idea. When you do that, you can begin actually taking steps in that direction of the idea you're more passionate about. However, it's hard to get really excited when you don't exactly know what that's going to be. So I want to encourage you. If this is what you really want to do, if this is that burning fire in your belly, then let's figure out the details so you can bring it to life. If not, if you're stuck and you don't know what product it is and you don't know what you want to give back to, it might be a better route to go the life balance coach route. That's going to be a quick win. It's going to be low-hanging fruit and something you can start doing immediately. And of course, you can always find ways to give back through that avenue as well. But again, my advice will always be to go the route you're more passionate about. Great question, Gina, and good luck. All right, our last question comes from Nikki. Nikki, what's your question for me?
My name is Nikki, and I have a multi-family apartment staffing business. My biggest question is, how do you know or how do you gain the confidence to jump from your full-time position to your new business? It's probably been the biggest struggle I've had. It once was fear of even getting started, and now I'm past that. Now it's just, when is the right time to make the jump? It is my side business, but of course the goal is always to make it your full-time. Where I am right now, I'm an independent contractor, so my income can vary. That is something that I can jump into and make it steady. So when is the right time to make that move?
Nikki, that's a great question. And honestly, one of the most common questions I get. I work with a lot of women in the business boutique that start side businesses, and they have the goal for that to replace a full-time job. Here's how you do it. I want you to build your side business up so big that the money is actually there to support you. So what I want you to do is work on that side business on the side, after hours, on the weekends, and for a season, it's going to feel a little crazy. It's going to feel like you're working 2 full-time jobs because you are. But the goal is for that to stay a season. You're going to bust it in the short term so that long term you can live your dream. So take that side business, work on it after hours, on the weekends, and build up your personal income. As you build that up, when you have enough money to live on, then you can make that step. I don't want you to make the leap to full-time because then when you make a leap, you fall harder and it hurts more. Instead, I want you to build this up so it's the next logical step. Now, I do want to point out that you don't have to build your side business up so big that it's making the equivalent of what you're making in your full-time job. It just needs to make enough to support you. So let's say, for example, right now in your full-time job, you're making $60,000 a year, but you can build your side business up enough so that it's making $30,000 a year. If you're willing to make some cuts and live within $30,000 a year, you can take that step quicker. You don't have to wait until the side business is the equivalent of your full-time job. It just needs to be able to support you. So you just want to make sure the money is actually there so that whenever you take that step, the business is a blessing, not a burden. It's a great question, and I can't wait to see you win. Now, if you have a question about something we've talked about here on the podcast or anything regarding your business, I want to hear from you. You can send me your questions via Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram by using the hashtag AskChristyWright. We also have a group in the Business Boutique community at businessboutique.com called hashtag AskChristyWright, where you can send me your questions and interact with all of the awesome women there. Your question could be featured here on our podcast. So send me your questions. I can't wait to hear from you. Okay, so your homework for this week is to assess your pricing. I want you to look at what you're charging right now and think about it in relation to what I've taught you in this episode. Are you placing a high value on the uniqueness with which God has created you? Are you placing a realistic value on your experience and education and skills? And are you placing an ambitious value on the solution that you're promising? When you begin to look at your pricing through this lens, I think it's going to help you value yourself more and charge more. That's it for this week, and thanks so much for hanging out with me as always. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast. And for more encouragement on how to make money doing what you love, visit businessboutique.com.
Thanks for listening. More episodes and shows like this are available to you at accessmore.com. And if you're able to give right now, there's an added bonus. You'll be eligible to win a major tech upgrade, the perfect prize to help you enjoy the entire library of shows at Access More. You're so needed to help continue important conversations about faith and life on Access More. So let's do this together. at accessmore.com and click donate. That's accessmore.com and then click donate.